Hello, jolly good morning to you. Have you ever needed to set up an Aurelia development environment configured in Windows? And by Aurelia, I mean, whoops, I mean this thing here, Aurelia.io, the JS thingamabobber. Well, so a couple of days ago, we had it was at our local .NET nerd meeting here in Greenville, South Carolina. We had a super smart dude come out, Matt D came out, and he showed us all about Aurelia, and it's super cool, and it does all kinds of neat things. And I sort of walked away feeling like, yeah, I want to play with Aurelia. That's the next hotness, right? So you go over to the getting started page, and I've got npm, and I've got yeoman, and I know how to do these kinds of things. I've seen these kind of commands before, so I thought all I have to do is type them out and I'll be up and running in no time, right? Wrong, right? It's never quite that easy. Would be super awesome if it was. And so I struggled a little bit trying to get up and running. And before I continue, just have a couple of quick notes. This video is being, this demo sort of instruction thing is happening on Windows 10 version 10.0.10240. The current version of Node that I'm running is 5.10. That includes npm 3312. And we're playing with Aurelia version 0.10.1. I believe that is kind of all of the version information. I'm not sure what version of Python I actually ended up installing, but we can figure that out. Probably, wow, I went through a lot of trouble to do that. So it's Python version 2.7.10, and that should be, beyond that, next week Aurelia is going to change. All of these probably are going to change, so I don't know that these instructions are going to be valid much more than a week from now. So the other thing I wanted to mention was that, it took me a lot of times to get this video right because I kept learning, hitting roadblocks and learning along the way. And unfortunately, I did not take screenshots of the errors that I was getting along the way. So when I tell you that you need Python version 2, but I can't really explain why because I didn't record that information at the time. I can just tell you that's necessary. And so, this is a pretty low production video. But yes, I know how to use PowerPoint, but I didn't want to invest a lot of time into a video that's going to become outdated very quickly. This is mostly just for somebody out there who's struggling trying to get this working right now. Well, this is actually probably the fourth time I have made this video because it on Windows actually is quite a bit more complicated and very interesting getting this set up. So this is getting started with Aurelia on Windows. My name is Alejandro Dresco. Here's my email address if you want to tell me I'm doing this wrong or that I could do it a better way. And here's roughly the set of steps that we're going to kind of go through in order to get this computer set up. Now, this is a brand new Windows 10 virtual machine that I've got hosted up in Azure. I literally have not installed anything on it at all. So, step one, install Chocolatey. If you don't know what Chocolatey is, I guess it is a machine package manager, somewhat like apt-get, but built with Windows in mind. If you don't know what apt-get is, then maybe this isn't the video for you. So installing PowerShell, pretty simple. I don't read things. I just copy this and paste it into an administrative command prompt. So boom. This usually takes all of about 10 seconds. And it is done. Okay. And Chaco tells me that it is running. Cool. One little tip as you move about this process is to exit out of the command prompt and start it back up after every chocolatey operation. That will just kind of make your life a little bit easier. So next on our to-do list is install Git with chocolatey. Now that we have Choco, we can just install Git. And this can take a few minutes. So I'm gonna speed up the video, or at least you're gonna see a sped up video. I'm going to go wash some laundry. No, dishes. Dishes is probably a better idea this morning. So enjoy the show. I'll see you back here in just a moment. The dishes are done, man. So next, just some basic Git configuration. Now, if I type Git now to see if Git is installed, it's going to tell me it's not. If I back out, go back into a command prompt, unfortunately, for whatever reason, Git is still not installed. So what that means, I mean, it's installed, but what it means is that it didn't get added to my... Yep, that's the dishwasher. I didn't actually wash the dishes. I just started the dishwasher. So I'll deal with that in just a second. In the meantime, basically, the Git path didn't get added to my path environment variable. So Chocolatey didn't used to do that. I used to be able to install Git with Chocolatey and it would work fine. But like I said, I've done this video about 4 or 5 times now, and it hasn't worked exactly perfectly every time. Not a big deal. I've got Git now. I don't know. I kind of doubt this next step is required, but golly. But I am going to configure Git. It's just kind of something I'm used to doing whenever I install Git. Okay, now installing Node. If you look at my to-do list, Chaco install Node.js. Why? Now I'm going to, I guess, I do kind of need to put some laundry away, so that's what I'm gonna go do. Enjoy the words coming up on the screen, and hey, you know what? No, stop for just a second. I want to kind of explain this list before I go any further while Node is installing. We have to install Node, the latest version, because Node comes with npm. And possibly the most important part of that, oh, Node is done. So let's install Python 2. And Chaco install Python 2. Note the 2. Okay, that's important. And that's kind of, I know I'm jumping all over the place, y'all, but golly, it's morning time. I haven't had any coffee. So Node.js comes with npm. This process works a whole lot better if you have npm version 3. npm version 2 es bado. Okay, you don't want version 2 of npm. That's just my experience. npm 3 is a whole lot better. Same kind of situation with Python. Python 3 es muy bado. Okay. That's really not to say anything is bad about Python 3, but it doesn't appear as if the world has caught up to Python 3 yet. And you can have Python 2 and Python 3 installed at the same time, so don't freak out there. Just install Python 2. This process will not work, apparently, in my experience, without Python 2. Now, I don't know enough about all of these tools to know why you have to have a very specific configuration, and if you do not have that specific configuration, why things don't work, I haven't been able to look that closely into it. I'm just telling you what you got to do, surefire, guaranteed way to get started with Aurelia on Windows, because that's what we're doing. So let's install Python 2, not Python 3. And then that's what we're doing there. The Python installation process does not create a Python environment variable. And again, it's just something I've discovered while setting up Aurelia, that you have to have a Python environment variable pointed at Python exe for Python 2. So we'll go through, create that after Python is installed, and we'll test it, because that can be important sometimes. And then basically we're at the point where we can walk through the pinky instructions here on the Aurelia website. The only other interesting trick besides npm3 Python 2 setting up the Python environment variable, if you've got a new computer, as strange as this may sound, but I could close the door and not hear the dishwasher. But I'm not turning back now, y'all. Not turning back. Anyway, as strange as it may sound, okay, we're talking Aurelia here, and it doesn't say anything about npm3. The instructions don't say anything about needing Python 2 or setting up a Python environment and variable. And this being a very open source project, it doesn't say anything about needing Visual Studio installed, but but that's the truth of it. If you do not install Visual Studio correctly, and I'll show you how to do that, you will not have a successfully configured up and running Aurelia environment. You don't have to have Visual Studio to code Aurelia. You don't have to have Visual Studio to do anything. You never have to even open Visual Studio after you install it. But this here command, yo Aurelia, requires Visual Studio on Windows for whatever reason. I tell you the reason. I think it needs the C++ compiler in order to do some things as part of the installation. And in my research online, you don't necessarily... Oh, Python didn't install. Okay, so maybe it was because I didn't exit after I installed git. So Choco install Python 2. It's gonna work this time, folks. So anyway, in my research, looks like maybe Python is working. In my research, I found a couple different ways to fix the problem. You get some error about MS Build version 2 available, but it requires version 4, something like that. So really it seems that all you need is MS Build, but a certain version, and you can't just copy MS Build out to your computer. It may or may not come in certain Windows SDKs. It may or may not come in certain Visual Studio SDKs. You may or may not, if you take another approach, have to set some weird environment variables, and I decided to do this the easy way possible. I want this to be as easy for you as possible, so that's what I'm trying to explain. The easiest thing to do is install Visual Studio. Community is the free version. It doesn't have to be Community. If you have the full version of Visual Studio, that is perfectly fine. I hope this makes sense, y'all. It's a lot easier than it might seem, since I've kind of figured it all out. But figuring it out, I promise you, was a pain. And maybe that's something that the Aurelia folks can help iron out. So what we need is a Python environment variable. And you'll see right now that we do not have one. So let's jump into System, Advanced Settings, Environment Variables, and we're going to create a new one called Python. Oh, and we need that to be pointed at, no, I think it's out here in Tools, Python to python.exe. Okay. So we got our Python environment variable pointed to python.exe for Python 2. And what do you think is going to happen if I try to echo that environment variable right now? Right? You remember what I told you? Hey, cat. It's not going to work unless you exit. Fire up a new thingy. And now we can echo Python. So we got our Python environment variable. That is super important. And yay, so we're at the point where we get to actually follow the instructions here on the Aurelia website. So let's do that, yo. Right. npm install, I don't know about uppercase, delete. You know you can't do that. You can't select something in the command prompt and backspace or delete it. You have to do it the hard way. Wow. Gulp. Now I'm 100% positive, again, because I've done this a handful of times, that this process will take a few minutes. One thing I want to tell you before I run off and go do some laundry is let you know that you can tell you have npm version 3 if you get these cool little progress bars and the little funny ASCII art animation here that I don't understand. Oh, gulp is done. I guess we'll do something else before we do laundry. npm install g jspm. This is installing JSPM, which is not necessary. The instructions say that Aurelia will run with Bower, or you can use Bower instead of JSPM. But I don't know, man. JSPM is pretty rad, and I'd love to see him go toe to toe. I think JSPM is pretty cool. I guess while I'm thinking about it, I want to point out a couple more things about the instructions that are kind of strange to me. The next thing we're gonna do is run npm install g yo install g yo Aurelia, and that's going to install Yeoman, which is another thing, and generator Aurelia, which is a Yeoman generator for Aurelia at the same time. Okay, we just finished installing JSPM. I'm going to exit, bring up another command prompt, and run npm install g yo generator Aurelia Aureli. I love the name Aurelia. It's a very beautiful name, and I'd love to know the origins of Aurelia, though it's sometimes the most difficult word to say in the entire world. So while we're installing Yo and Aurelia, I can get back to what I was saying. Here we've got a situation where we're installing two different things at the same time using npm install-g. Why do we install gulp separately and JSPM separately using npm install-g when clearly we can install more than one thing at the same time? It almost seems as if we could save a little bit of time in this video and you wouldn't have to listen to me as much if we did you know what I'm saying, like pretty obvious here. If we did npm install g gulp, what was the next one? Oh, JSPM yo generator Aurelia. That seems like it would save some time. My guess is that it's because JSPM isn't necessary and they're giving you the opportunity to decide at this point if that's what you want, but gulp is necessary for JSPM, maybe? I don't know. So the instructions are kind of weird there. They're also weird when you get to this point where it says run yo Aurelia. Just below that it says this runs npm and JSPM. Well, what is this? This is a bit ambiguous. Is this or is this? I'll tell you that this is this, and this does run this, and by this and this I mean this and this. But the instructions don't really make it super clear, in my opinion. It continues through the instructions that you'll need. It seems like they're telling you still need to execute this and this. Why is this and this in here if this does this and this? Kind of confusing, and given that I've done this installation a handful of times, it's a little bit frustrating. But as it stands, if you're just joining us, we're getting started with Aurelia on Windows. We've just executed this here command. It does take a few minutes, and now I'm going to go work on the laundry. Maybe? No, because once it gets to this, well, okay. Yeah. Laundry. Peace. Barely made it out the door and it finished. How about that? So we're getting closer, folks. This is the money right here. This is the command. So what I want to do is give myself a directory to play in. I believe. Let me double check my instructions. So we did that. We ran those. Yep. So we're gonna got us a directory to play in, because when you run yo Aurelia, it's going to download about 200 megabytes worth of stuff and get it all configured. We're not ready for that. This is, man, it's a good thing I was paying attention. Now is the point where we have to install Visual Studio Community, and that's the kind of weird, sad part about this. I just binged, because I'm a binger, I binged Visual Studio Community, and it gives me a very small setup shim. And installing Visual Studio over the years has gotten much better. It's actually kind of amazing because the sheer size and complexity of Visual Studio, we can run a very simple installer and it works. Oh man, gotta restart before I can run this. For shame. So folks, that's kind of where we are, and I wasn't prepared to restart, so I will save this off somewhere and close all that, close that, and shut down RT0. There it goes. We shall return in just a moment from outer space whenever our virtual machine restarts. And we're back. That took forever. I mean, seriously, way too long. We're back at the step where we install Visual Studio Community. I should enunciate better, right? Hey, this is my video, so I can not enunciate if I want to not enunciate. So, installing Visual Studio again. And here's the important piece. Don't just go click and install. You do need to click custom. That's the dog. You do need to click Visual C++. Okay. The last time I did this, I did click Python tools for Visual Studio because I wasn't sure. Since we needed Python 2, I thought, I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to click this. I don't think it adds a whole lot of weight to the installation, but that's what I did, and it worked last time, so that's what I'm going to do this time. Can you believe this? 11 gigabytes to install this, just to get Aurelia up and running. That is insane. I see on my computer, the first time I got Aurelia set up, I already had Visual Studio 2015, so getting Aurelia running correctly wasn't so difficult. But on a new machine, you're going to go through a little bit of pain. I would love to know if there's an easier way to get all this up and running. But like I said, this is the fourth time I've gone through this video, and every single time I hit a roadblock, I learned something new that has to be done. And so this set of steps that I'm walking you through now is what seems to work on a brand new Windows 10 computer if you want to get started with Aurelia on Windows. Now, this Visual Studio install is going to take quite a long time to install. I'm actually going to pause the recording on my end because I don't want to have to edit an hour of video in post after this is done. So you're not going to see a whole bunch happen. Here in about 1 second, the installation will be complete. Hey, check us out. Visual Studio is done installing, and we're so close at this point to having this thing work right. Okay, so go back to our administrative command prompt and change back over to our directory. Next up is the big command, the Aurelia, getting started, just to make sure. Hey, here's something for you, Aurelia people. Sometimes in Edge, when I go to the docs, it doesn't work unless I pop open an in private window. This seems to work sometimes. Come on, big bunny. Nope. Well, it's a good thing I wrote down the instructions that we need in order to move forward. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So, one of the things we'll need later on in our instructions is Chrome. So I'm going to just go ahead and use Chocolatey to install Chrome. We'll need that for the unit tests for the Aurelia unit tests and the end-to-end tests. So just going to go ahead and install that now, and hopefully that will allow me to view the Aurelia documentation whenever we've got Chrome running up again. So let's wait and give that a couple of minutes, and when that's done, actually Chrome doesn't take very long. Let's just sit here. Okay, so Chrome is installed. This is actually an entirely different day. This is the next day. So we kind of sat here for a few hours, and no, really, we went and had date night and came back, and hopefully we're still able to finish recording this video so I don't have to do it a second time, or a sixth time, I should say. So we have Chrome. In theory, Chrome, there it is. And if I remember correctly, we were trying to pull up the Aurelia documentation, and Internet Explorer, or Edge I should say, was giving us some trouble. Here we are, getting started. Is it going to work for us? Ah, I like it. Production setup. We're all learning a few things here, aren't we? At least I hope so. We have Chrome, which was necessary once we get down to here, but we're not there yet. We're at where are we? We're at Yo Aurelia, I believe. Is there anything in here? Nope. Yep, let's do it. Yo Aurelia. Yo Aurelia. And go. So this part is where you kind of cross your fingers and hope that everything worked correctly. This is the first time that I have run Yeoman on this computer, so it prompts you for stuff. I say yes because I'm not one of those hyper paranoid people. And this part takes a long time, but it's kind of fun to watch. It's a little different from all the other npm stuff. And you can see here where it's executing npm install and jspm install, which, if you remember our instructions here saying it will run those. So Yo Aurelia is basically running these two commands. And you can see that it's a little bit different of a user experience we're seeing here. Hopefully we won't see any errors. There's one warning in particular that kind of bothers me. I honestly don't know if I'll see it this time around. I'll try to point it out though. I don't really understand. I know we're downloading some dependencies and installing them, but load dep wacko sounds fun. There's Babel and lots of stuff. Just kind of want to point out that this process is downloading about 200 megabytes worth of data, or okay, I don't know if it's downloading 200 megabytes worth of data, but in the end, you'll have about 200 megabytes worth of data. So, I know there's some compilation processes and different things that are happening, and perhaps that's producing more data, but that's kind of what you're going to end up with. Here's the one command that kind of concerns me, or the one line warning: install couldn't install optional dependency unsupported. That's a very generic sort of command, and there's not enough logging here to explain what's happening. I suppose in order to figure out where this is blowing up, you would have to go and see, I guess, where this, the line before it, where that's happening in the installation process, and I just haven't taken the time to figure that out, and so far it doesn't appear to be affecting anything that I can tell, except for there, when we get down here and we run the unit test will run fine, but the end-to-end tests do not run. I'll walk through the process of trying to get it to run and showing you what happens, but they don't really run as I believe they're supposed to. Okay, this I believe is the build process that requires Visual Studio being installed. And it looks like it worked. And I like to scroll up a couple of lines and see if there were any errors right at the end that I wasn't able to catch, but it looks good, y'all. So now the moment kind of we've all been waiting for is this command here, gulp watch. And let me check my instructions or my list here. Yep, gulp watch. Gulp watch. Well, before I do that, look, here's all of the mighty stuff that we installed. And you can also kind of see that right now we have 160 megabytes of data. Still have one more little build process to run, and that'll happen when we type gulp watch. It's probably not going to generate much more data than 160 megabytes, but we'll measure it just to see. This little window will pop up the first time because it's using Node as a or not Node specifically, but it's firing up a small HTTP server on port 9000, so we can actually view the Aurelia site once it's you gotta have a server generally. So I do that just because of habit, I guess. I click that second option, and anyway, so now we ought to be able to paste in the URL here. We'll go full screen all the way. We want to see it in all the glory. Press enter. Cross your fingers. It looks good. Looks good. We got browser sync and we're up and running. Now can I do this? Here we go. Here we go. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Is the man. Nice, y'all. Check it out. We got the clean and dirty checking happening automatically here. This little test page works. And this little test page works. So that means Aurelia is up and running in our environment. And just because we're curious, we'll check and see how much that build process produced. basically nothing. So 160 megabytes of, well, really you're probably you just downloaded a whole bunch of stuff and went through a whole lot of work to get this thing up and running, but it works. And where you take it from here, I'll leave that up to you. The Aurelia documentation is getting better and better all the time. It's really cool, and I encourage you to check it out, and have a nice day.